everyone. Welcome everybody. This is IC05. This is the modifications to the home environment and beyond, creating safer environments. I am Stephanie Vasquez and I will be moderating today's session and will provide the CEU code at the end. Before we get started, please remember to mute yourself, and questions can be asked using the chat feature or the Q&A feature that you will see on the ISS Attendee Hub. I will go ahead and turn in to the speakers today. My honor is today to present Amanda Farrell and Sue King from Safe Spaces. Thank you so much for joining this session, and now I will turn it on to them. Thank you.
Hello, hi. So thank you for joining us today. My name's Platt and I'm the marketing manager at Safe Spaces in the UK. Amanda Farrell, who's our product advisor, is with me, as is Sue King, who's our business director, and Craig and Amy from Adaptive Imports, who are our distribution partners, are also with us. So thank you for joining us today. We're all here to answer any questions that you may have at the end. So thank you for taking the time to join us today. And congratulations to the ISS team for pulling this together virtually so quickly. You've obviously done a great job. So home modifications, or adaptations, as we sometimes call them in the UK, is an area of study that is gaining traction internationally. Whilst a lot of focus is placed on home modifications and ageing, we're going to focus on the challenges faced by young people with complex needs and their families, and we'll look at how modifications to the home can alleviate some of these challenges to create a safer home environment. We'll explore the benefits of one of our products in particular, which is called the Safe Space. And we'll look and explore how this can support children and young people with a range of complex needs, such as sensory processing disorders and sleep issues. Importantly, the session will also explore how a safe space can be used as a tool for the development of behaviour self-management for children who display challenging behaviours, and how it provides an alternative to restrictive interventions. I'll deliver this presentation, which should be about 30 minutes, and then we'll have an interactive Q&A session where our product advisor and Adaptive Imports will be on hand to answer any questions. If you do have any questions, please type these into the chat box and we'll do our best to answer them all at the end. So first, I'm going to introduce you to who we are. So we are Safe Spaces. We were founded in the UK in the year 2000. We're a family-run business and we're based in Yorkshire in the UK. We design, develop and manufacture a range of customised high-sided beds and sleep areas, and these are used in homes, in schools, hospitals, respite care and for travel. We supply products for people with complex needs, learning and physical disabilities, and those who may be otherwise unsafe in an ordinary room or bed. All of our products are custom designed and made to suit the user and the settings that they'll be installed in, and they're all made by our expert team in our factory in Yorkshire. We work closely with parents and a range of health and education professionals to constantly improve our offer. Our reach is global, so we have a close network of suppliers and distributors based around the world. Adaptive Imports are our partners in the USA. So we're a business with an ethical sales policy at its heart, and all of our products are FDA registered. If the product won't suit you, we won't recommend it. So as you can see, here's some examples of our products. So our high-sided beds and sleep areas fulfill a range of needs. Here's an example of them. As you can see, we've got beds that are high or low-sided. We've got beds that have high, low and profiling options, and beds that cater for a range of caring and medical needs. So what do our products do? They enable adults and children to stay in the family home, often when this doesn't seem possible. They enable people with complex needs to access medical treatment in a safe environment, and they enable people to access respite settings. All our beds are soft-sided and durable and last for many years. So we have lots of reports of clients and customers that have had their Safe Space products for over 15 years. So one product that we're going to speak about today is called the Safe Space. So before we move on to home adaptations, we really need to look at this is what we often prescribe as a home modification or adaptation in the UK. The Safe Space is a soft, durable sleep and relaxation space. It's designed for those who have been safe in an ordinary room. It's used to support people with a range of complex needs, including sensory processing issues, poor sleep patterns, or behaviour difficulties. It provides a space in which someone can sleep, play, and move freely. It reduces the risk of injury by eliminating any hard surfaces. Each safe space is custom designed and made according to the needs, behaviours, and abilities of the person in which it will go to. When assessing if a safe space is suitable to somebody, like we said, we look at mobility, behaviour, and sleep. So how is this used and where? I'll just give you a very brief overview. So at home, a safe space can be used as a safe bedroom, as a playroom, or as a chill out space. It can be used as a low stimulation environment, which can help with settling at bedtime, and it can help to improve sleep patterns. It can be used as a high sensory environment where sensory diet activities can take place. And it can be used as a space to promote independence and privacy. In schools, it is often used to support behaviour self-management and crisis management. It can be used as a tool for positive reinforcement and as an alternative to restrictive interventions. This is something that I'm going to go into in further detail further on in the presentation. So when working with schools, we always recommend that a record book is used, which can monitor and record behaviour. This helps to map when and how a safe space is used, and the results can help to determine triggers and effective responses to support the development of proactive strategies for managing things like behaviour self-management. It's often used as a therapy space to support the range of sensory needs, as we mentioned, and it's often used as a more versatile option than room padding. So it's worth mentioning here that in the USA, many private insurances, state Medicaid, school systems, and waiver systems have funded safe space products, and Adaptive Imports are on hand to discuss that later if anybody would like to. So firstly, we need to look at the families that we work with and the challenges that are facing these families. So home modification in the UK is a way of supporting people with complex needs and disabilities to live safely in the family home. A lot of research has been conducted in the UK on the needs of home modifications and on the impact that it has for the family and for the wider society. We will share some of these findings from the UK, and we'll also share our own experiential findings and data that we've gathered over the last 22 years. So what are the issues facing these families? Many of the families that we meet have family members with a range of disabilities and complex needs. That means that they're unsafe in an ordinary room or bed, and they need a modification to help them stay at home. They may display extremely challenging behaviours and self-injurious behaviours, which may require a safe relaxation or de-escalation space where no harm can come to themselves or others. They may have a limited sense of danger, or they may display behaviours such as flight behaviours, which might mean they need to be kept safe. Many children have physical conditions that we work with, such as epilepsy or those that involve seizures. This requires the need for a safe sleep space. They may have irregular sleep patterns or display sensory seeking behaviour, which may cause them harm if they were to be left in an ordinary room or bed. So research by the charity Scope shows that disabled children tend to spend more time in their homes than non-disabled children, but that there is evidence to suggest that their homes are the most restrictive environments in which they spend their time. And that's where we come in to support. So these issues have been compounded by the additional pressures created by the COVID pandemic, where people are having to spend even more time at home and they're facing a lack of social support. So research from the Disabled Children's Partnership has revealed that nearly 3/4 of disabled children have seen progress managing their conditions, and the overall development regress due to the pandemic. The whole family is being disproportionately socially isolated, and they're facing stark mental health issues. Research is still being conducted about the pandemic and its effects, and that isn't something that I'm going to go into further detail about. But just before the pandemic, the Disabled Children's Partnership collected this data from 2,400 parent carers. The research was shocking and included the stats above that you can see on this slide. So of these parent carers, only 4% felt that they get the right support to safely care for their disabled child. 37% of them said their disabled child had missed school or college because the staff or services are not available to support them. So it may be that in their school, there wasn't the appropriate provision, which we can provide. 33% of parent carers say that their disabled child has been in unnecessary pain because the right equipment, doctor or health service hasn't been available. So needless to say, living in a home where a person and or their family are unsafe, or where they don't have access to the right living areas, or it's restricted, can have a huge social impact on these figures and on the well-being of everyone in the household. But there are things that can be done. So modifications have the potential to build resilience and to empower disabled people and those with complex needs to live more independently at home. They can significantly reduce family stress and improve mental health and the sense of well-being for the whole family. Appropriate modifications can prevent unnecessary hospital stays and can promote the social inclusion and independence of people with long-term illnesses or disabilities. Modifications can also help to deliver some key government health and social care policy objectives. So, home adaptations in the UK, I'll give you a quick overview. So currently in the UK, people needing a home modification can access a grant, which is called the Disabled Facilities Grant. We call this the DFG for short. So this ranges from about £1,500 to about £30,000, and the average grant is about £9,000. Some of this financial support is coming from local authorities. So one important study that we really want to share is called The Disabled Children and the Cost Effectiveness of Home Adaptations and Disabled Facilities Grant, a small-scale pilot. A huge mouthful. So this was conducted in 2017 by the School of Law at Leeds University and the children's neurological charity called Cerebra. It studied the economic and well-being impact of home modifications to accommodate the needs of young people within the autistic spectrum who had behaviours that challenge. So the research was conducted with 6 families who all had applied for home modifications from the same local authority. The research took place through observations, interviews, and case studies. This was a small but incredibly important study, and it was one that had never been done before. So the adaptations for these families were designed to provide safe spaces for the young person. This included the creation of safe garden spaces, padded walls, new doors, shatterproof windows, as well as specialist bathroom and bedroom furniture. The study also included the use of one of our products called the Safe Space that I mentioned, which is a sleep, safe and relaxation area. And it's this product that we have funded through the DFG. In all cases, the young people's behaviour involved serious harm to themselves, to the household or to the property. All required constant supervision, and 5 out of 6 of these families were clear that without any modification, their children would become a looked after child, which meant that they'd go into state care. So I'll cover the findings in brief. So the well-being benefits and well-being findings from this study are that the most commonly mentioned well-being benefit to the young person was that she or he had a safe space to be, to feel safe and to relax in. For parents, it was that they felt less under pressure and they felt healthier. Significant benefits were identified for their siblings, who now felt able to have a safe space, privacy, independence, and the opportunity to invite friends to their home. The economic findings were that whilst the cost of adaptations was met from a housing benefit and housing budget, the savings made benefited the health and social care budgets, and it found that the cost savings for younger people are likely to be higher as the benefits are spread out over a longer period of time. So this was compared to a housing adaptation or modification for an older person. The financial impact was that an investment in housing modifications of £300,000 avoided social service costs of £1.5 million. So that was a total of a 5-fold return on investment of public money. The principal cost benefit was that the modification had avoided the need for the young people to be taken into care or residential accommodation. It kept these families together, which makes me really emotional. The evidence of the families in these cases was that modifications avoided a total of 11 years of looked after child funding. Looking to the future, these families estimated that they would, because of the home modification, be able to sustain their caring role for a total of 3 further years. So that kept their families together. And financially, it saved a total of 14 years of looked after child status. So that's a brief overview of the study, and I do encourage you to read it in further depth in full. You'll be able to access this. I'll provide information of where you can find it, but it was a really pivotal study in the UK. So we're going to look a little bit about what challenging behaviour is and look at sensory processing and sleep disorders. So we all know the impact that challenging behaviour has for a child, their family and those around them. Behaviour can be described as challenging in the UK when it is of such an intensity, frequency or duration as to threaten the quality of life and or the physical safety of the individual and others, and if it's likely to lead to responses that are restrictive, aversive, or result in some kind of exclusionary measure. So this kind of behaviour may include a person causing harm to themselves or others. It could be destructive behaviour, such as it could be eating inedible objects, flight behaviours, such as climbing, hiding or running, or distress behaviour, which may include a range of things such as repetitive behaviour, spitting, screaming, urinating, etc. The term challenging behaviour describes the behaviour as challenging to services rather than the problem being with the person. This encourages carers and professionals to find effective ways of understanding that person's behaviour and, more importantly, at looking at the underlying causes. So for people with autism or learning difficulties, it can be difficult living in a world designed for neurotypical people, and it may cause them distress because their underlying sensory needs are not being met. Challenging behaviours that are displayed have reasons or a function, and it's important to focus on that rather than the behaviour itself. So these behaviours may be a way to control what's going on around the person, or it may be a way for them to get their needs met. It may be to communicate high levels of pain and distress, or it means as a means of avoiding things that they don't like. So, as the Challenging Behaviour Foundation states, the earlier challenging behaviour can be understood and strategies are put in place to help reduce the behaviours, the better it is for the person and those caring for them. Sensory integration or sensory processing difficulties occur when a brain has trouble interpreting and reacting to incoming sensory information from the body and the environment. According to the National Autistic Society report, which came out in 2021, it's estimated that between 5 and 16.5% of the general population have symptoms associated with sensory integration difficulties. And these estimates are higher for people with autism or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. An unsafe and unsuitable environment can have a direct impact on these behaviours and needs, and it's crucial that the home environment is suitable to meet the needs of the person and the family. So a safe space is often prescribed as a home modification for people that have sensory needs, and in some cases, sensory processing disorders can have a huge impact on behaviour and sleep. So I'll spend a few minutes exploring how a safe space, in our experience, has supported children and young people with sensory processing disorders. So, as a retreat, a safe space can be used. Homes can be highly stimulating environments, and it's often very, very difficult to identify what triggers will upset somebody who is hypersensitive. The person may be overstimulated by certain noise or light, for example. They may be unable to communicate their feelings and struggle to concentrate. Allowing an individual to take themselves or to indicate that they want to go to a safe space gives them the opportunity to learn to manage their reactions to the stimulation. So a safe space or a safe space that we provide is also an ideal way to deliver sensory diets. This is because it can be adjusted to create a high or a low sensory space very quickly. This is crucial as an individual's sensory needs may fluctuate throughout the day. Most sensory equipment can be used with a safe space, so projectors, fibre optics, soft play textiles, etc. Parents and carers can use the safe space to offer intensive interaction, massage, and other therapeutic activities to support these individuals with their sensory needs. For those with vestibular or balance difficulties, the safe space has a soft foam floor to minimise injuries. Sometimes those with vestibular difficulties are reluctant to explore their environment for fear of falling, and in a safe space, that fear can be overcome as the space on the floor is soft. For those who need proprioceptive feedback, the flexible walls of a safe space work well. For instance, an individual may rock violently against the hard walls of a room to obtain feedback. This sensory-seeking behaviour can be carried out safely in a safe space as the risk of injury from hard surfaces are removed. So we conduct a customer survey every time a safe space is installed in a family home as a modification, or if it's not come from a modification grant, just if it's been installed. So we've most recently got the results, and we found that 49% of families have said that there's been an improvement in sensory issues, which is an excellent result for us. So what constitutes a safe and sustainable environment? Foundations is a national body for home improvement agencies in the UK. They're contracted by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to oversee a national network of nearly 200 home improvement agencies across the country. In 2021, they conducted a research paper called A Guide for Children and Young People with Behaviours That Challenge, and this was endorsed by the Royal College of Occupational Therapists. As I mentioned earlier, all of these reports and all of this data is available at the end and on the hub. So the guide is based on a range of key legislation, such as the papers, such as the Cerebral report and data that I've mentioned previously in this report. It draws on key research and uses its own data collected from health and education professionals, parents, from carers, families, and key stakeholders. The report provides case study examples and examples of good practice in order to support the effective use of home modification grants. It also provides recommendations for the design of adaptations for children and young people with behaviours that challenge. So the report recommends that a home modification provides a space that is all of these things. So the first one is it should provide controlled acoustics to minimise the background noise and dull the sound of repetitive behaviours such as headbanging. An appropriate home adaptation should have appropriate lighting that can be adjusted to provide a calm, relaxation environment. This lighting should be difficult to access for the young person. Designing spaces should be done in such a way so it can support routine and predictability with minimum distraction. We should ensure that the space has clear functions and sensory qualities that help define its use. So, for example, it's clear when something is a relaxation space, it's clear when something is a play space, and it's clear when something is a safe sleep space. So, for example, with our safe space, this can be done by creating a routine and by creating clear indicators with the young person that's using them. As a home adaptation, a safe space should provide an escape space from the overstimulation of other environments. So it should be a safe space to crawl into, for example, or a quiet environment. This should be neutral and customizable. It should be a transition zone that helps an individual calibrate their senses as they move from one activity to the next. Safety is key for someone who may have an altered sense of their environment, and so safety features may be included, such as the avoidance of hard or sharp edges and corners. The report also suggests that the space should include and promote inclusivity. So the spaces should be non-institutional in design, and particular consideration should look to provide basic colour schemes such as patterns. So I'm going to start again with this. So the space should promote inclusivity. It should be a non-institutional design with consideration to colour schemes. So patterns should be a minimum. Textures can be considered, and the finishes themselves should create a homely space that doesn't overstimulate and that can provide differentiation between spaces if required. So that's a long list from a big study, but what it has provided information is that a home adaptation needs to have all of these things to be a safe and adaptable space for a young person. So looking at our safe space, it does meet a lot of these needs, which is why we get such high recommendations and high positive statistics. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and get a glass of water, and I'm going to show you a case study that came from this report that looked at the safe space and how it provided positive impact for a family.
Yeah, there's no audio on the video.
There's no audio. Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, what I may do, instead of messing around, I can read you the case study and you can look at a video later on. So this is a case study of somebody called Thomas. Thomas lived with his mum, Moira, and his older sister in the family home. Throughout his childhood, Thomas experienced difficulty sleeping, and as he entered puberty, this became more problematic. At the age of 13, Thomas, who has autism, began to express increased anxiety and presented challenging behaviours. These included self-injurious behaviours such as banging hard surfaces with his hands. Thomas was prescribed melatonin to help him settle at night, and his family tried a range of techniques to help him. Despite this, he continued to struggle. Thomas and his family were all suffering from huge sleep deprivation, and there was an increased risk of self-harm as Thomas entered his teenage years. So, after looking at a range of options, the safe space multipurpose room was recommended for Thomas. This was because it would help to reduce the risk of injury and promote good sleep hygiene by providing a safe, calm, low sensory environment. The flexible sides of the safe space meant that Thomas would be safe from hard surfaces, and it provided a safer nighttime solution. So the outcomes of this study, and you can watch the video later in your own time, are that following the installation, Thomas's sleep pattern significantly improved, and he felt much more relaxed and was able to focus on going to sleep without any distractions. During the day, he was also able to use the safe space to de-escalate and self-calm if he felt overwhelmed. The safe space helped both Thomas and his family to effectively manage challenging behaviours and to improve the quality of life for the whole family. It also gave Thomas more independence as he transitioned into adulthood. And after 9 years, Thomas no longer needed the safe space. He was able to manage those behaviours with his family. So I'll move on. I may just have to do something very quickly and then bring you back in. Okay, here we go. So the report also provided another case study into some twins called Peter and Paul, who were non-verbal and presented with behaviours that challenged, including aggressive tendencies towards each other, anxiety, and an inability to cope with sensory overstimulation. Their primary carer was their mother, who was a single parent with 2 other children who also lived in the home. All were suffering from extreme sleep deprivation, and there was a serious risk of family breakdown, putting the caring arrangement at risk. So following provision of a safe space, which was funded by the DFG, the twins' tendencies were reduced and their sensory anxieties were able to be effectively managed. Social care was able to reduce costly specialist childminder provision, and their mother and their siblings experienced a significant improvement in quality of life. So those 2 case studies are just examples of how a safe space can be provided through a home modification. And like I said, we can provide examples of this and more case studies if you wish. I'm quickly going to talk about restrictive interventions. It's hugely important, and challenging behaviours can often lead to restrictive interventions, which are hugely detrimental and can really escalate the severity of a problem. So what are restrictive interventions? There are many examples of these that are used in everyday life. So they may be environmental restraints, physical restraints, chemical restraints, mechanical restraints, or psychological restrictions, which may be things such as withdrawal, seclusion, and segregation. Research by the Challenging Behaviour Foundation, that's a charity in the UK, found that 88% of families reported that their child had experienced a physical restraint, while 35% reported that it happened regularly. These restraints are traumatic for everyone involved and can have long-term negative effects on someone's physical, emotional, and psychological health, and they can cause lasting damage to relationships. In 2019, the UK government launched its recommendations, which was a strategy called Reducing the Need for Restraint and Restrictive Intervention. It highlighted that using positive behaviour support and other alternatives which can de-escalate challenging behaviours and which tackles the reasons for its source should be the preferred approach. The report provides advice and recommendations which is used to support relevant education, health and care settings. So we recommend that you do read this report if you're interested in this subject, and you can learn more about what the UK government advises and how it's rolling out its strategy. To give you a quick idea, the report recommends the following. So it's vital that work is undertaken to understand the needs of the child and to understand triggers. Strategies and plans should be developed to meet the needs of the child or the young person, and these strategies should be proactive and reactive. Adapting the environment that the children are taught and cared for in needs to be done to meet these needs. We should provide appropriate support without the use of restrictive intervention, and we should provide a consistent approach to behaviour management, consistently recording and reviewing incidents to map patterns and act accordingly are the best way forward. And we should use an evidence-based approach to behaviour support. So many of those recommendations link back to the other reports. So, and they link back to the safe space and how a safe space or how a home modification should be designed and implemented to support these children and their families in the safest way possible. So a safe space that we provide can be considered the least restrictive practice when used as an alternative to these type of interventions, and they can reduce the risk of injury to the individual and those around them. Quickly, we're going to look at sleep. So challenging behaviour and sensory processing disorders have a huge impact on sleep deprivation, and this is one of the most common challenges that we hear from parents and carers. Sleep disorders have a profound effect on the individual and their whole family. Poor sleep can result in poor mood, irritability, impaired concentration, the list goes on. In children, sleep is important for growth, with some stages of the sleep cycle releasing growth hormones. Poor sleep has also been attributed to the lowering of the immune system. So recommendations from the Sleep Charity in the UK are that children need more sleep than we think. So for 1 to 2 year olds, it's recommended that a child gets 11 to 14 hours, and this gradually reduces until a child or young person reaches 18, when it's still recommended that they get 8 to 10 hours. Yet, according to SCOPE, which is the Disability Equality Charity based in England and Wales, looking at England and Wales, in the general population, 3 out of 10 children have sleep problems, and this figure grows to 8 out of 10 children with intellectual disabilities. These issues can be for a range of reasons. So it may be due to physical health conditions, such as genetic syndromes, incontinence, pain, or seizures. It could be psychiatric vulnerabilities, such as fear of the dark, fear of separation, and medication effects. It could be differences in internal body clock, for example, changes in the release of sleep hormones, or it could be differences in sensory processing, such as distractions, confusion, or distress around bedtime. It can also be a parental response to a child waking. So as all of these things occur and a child wakes, the parent learns to go in and possibly wake the child up. And so it becomes like a cycle. So the bigger picture is that sleep deprivation is huge for the whole family. According to a report by the Sleep Charity in 2020, The UK is spending an average of £50 million a year to help the UK get a good night's sleep. So 21% of doctor consultations in the UK are related to sleep, and 3 out of 4 of depressed patients have sleep-deprived related symptoms. Sleep deprivation is very common amongst people with suicidal thoughts. Sleep deprivation accounts for a massive 40.2 billion cost to the UK workforce in a loss of productivity. And this is estimated to rise to 47 billion in 2030. It's also estimated by the Sleep Charity that 20% of road deaths are related to sleep deprivation. So these are just some statistics that we all know, in the sense of we know that if children don't sleep, the parents aren't sleeping, siblings aren't sleeping, and it's having a huge impact on the wider economy and society. But it's not all bad. So it's estimated that if an individual that sleeps for 6 hours a day could sleep between 6 and 7 hours, this could add 29.9 billion to the UK economy. And so I'm sure in the US, these stats are even higher, and it would be really interesting to compare and to know about these. So a safe space meets these needs in a range of ways. I'm not going to go thing because there's a lot of ways in which a safe space improves sleep. However, a safe space provides a low stimulation, quiet environment where visual distractions and noise are removed, and they're dampened by the flexing PVC walls. This can help with settling at bedtime and improve sleep patterns. It can provide a safer environment for those who continue to wake in the night. Parents are able to monitor their children's sleep patterns easily, and we recommend the use of a sleep diary to check triggers, etc. A safe space provides a separate calm space in which parents can develop a positive associated sleep routine. Over time, what we've heard from parents is that children and young people can begin to recognise their emotions and the changes in their body and start to understand their own behaviours by taking themselves to a safe space or requesting to go to a safe space, and this can reduce sensory overload. A safe space provides an ideal space where somebody who needs a high level of supervision can spend time being on their own but observed from a distance. So it promotes inclusivity, giving them the privacy they need to de-escalate and act out any challenging behaviours in the privacy of their own space without people observing and making it worse. And lastly, a safe space is a form of retreat where routine and predictability can be established and where a safe transition zone can be created. So just to finish off, I wanted to let you know that at Safe Spaces, we've been creating these areas for over 20 years, so 22 years. So we regularly receive positive quotes and positive stories from families, but we decided that it was time for us to collect some quantitative evidence and qualitative evidence, as well as the qualitative evidence. We needed data and we needed stats to prove what we already knew. So we launched a client customer survey in 2020 that we email out to everybody that's had a safe space or one of our products. These particular stats are only related to the safe space. So some of these people have had them as home modifications, for example. So out of 54 responses, they're the people that responded to our survey. These are our results, which we think are really positive. So 93% of people reported an increase in safety. 80% of families reported an improvement in family life. 66% of families reported improved sleep patterns. 56% reported an improvement in behaviour. 49% reported an improvement in independence and privacy, which is a fundamental human right. And 49% reported an improvement to sensory issues. We've also got a stat that tells us that 7% reported a reduction in medication. So this is a small but hugely significant number. If we can support 7% of families to reduce their medication, that's a hugely positive thing. So as a conclusion, It's crucial to understand the needs and behaviours of children with complex needs and disabilities. We must work with professionals to design products that are based on guidance and good practice. And there's a lot of guidance out there. There's a lot of data, some of which I've shared with you, and there's a lot of good practice examples. We've seen that the effective and creative use of a home moderation can make a significant impact on the lives of people with autism or learning disabilities, as well as the lives of their families and carers. Such an approach can also make sense financially. By helping to avoid unnecessary admissions to residential care, appropriate use of modification budgets not only delivers better outcome for people with autism and or learning disabilities and their families, but can also do so whilst at the same time delivering better value for money for local authorities. And as we all know, sometimes we need this information and this data to help us to get these home modifications that we need. So we're at the end of this presentation. We've referenced UK studies, and the information in this and the research that we've collected is that research that we're contributing to. So we've not used USA findings because this was specifically a UK-based presentation. And as I said, we're actively helping to contribute towards these findings and working really hard to support these charities and organisations developing this research. But the issues facing children and young people and families are global, and the safe spaces are changing lives internationally thanks to the dedicated work of our amazing distributors. So as I mentioned, Adaptive Imports are our partners in the US and are working with a range of reps to ensure that our products can reach the people that need them. In the USA, many private insurances, state Medicaid, school system and waiver systems have funded safe space products, as I mentioned before. Adaptive Imports are represented locally by independent manufacturer representatives in many regions. And it's worth saying that safe space products are only sold business to business. Families must work with an ATP. After this presentation, you can contact Adaptive Imports to connect with your local representative across the United States, or you can contact them with any queries you may have. They'll be happy to support you. So thank you for listening. Congratulations ISS, and thank you for letting us present today. We really hope that you found it useful. A version of these slides and all of the data and all of the reports that I've presented in their full form will be available to you. The slide version will be adapted just to meet your needs and to be quite brief, but you can get a copy of all the reports. And there's also some information that you can download about our products on the portal. So yes, thank you. We're here to answer any questions that you may have about the data that we've collected, about the research, about our products, or how our products are. You can access them in the USA via Adaptive Imports. So please submit your question in the chat box. Hopefully you've already done that. Thank you very much. So Amanda, can I, if I stop sharing my screen? Hello everyone, I've only just seen you because I've been presenting. Nice to see you all. Amanda, so could you go over some of the questions that we have? Oh, you're here. Amanda is here. As if by magic, she is in the same space. Here she is. So it's great to see so many people. I had absolutely no idea how many we had. So I'm really pleased that I wasn't talking to myself.
So Julie has a question about this. Usually room size typically go through this.
Can I say that again, please? What are the sizes of the safe space? Oh, that's a really good question. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. Okay.
The safe spaces are tailor made for the size of room that you have and the space you have available. So they meet the needs of the individual user, but also the space available. So they go as small as a single bed type size, and then they go as large as possibly 2 metre by 2 metre. We don't tend to make them a lot larger than that, because then they become a very overstimulating space. But we certainly go from a single bed size up to 2 metres by 2 metres. Sometimes, you know, slightly variation, 2.5 metre by a metre, depending on the size available. That's a really good question. Anybody else have a question at all? So what we do is we make the products, we design the doors and the windows, the vision panels to meet the room, the shape and the requirements of the room, so that all the features marry up with the room itself. And that's all part of making sure that it's tailor-made for the space available.
I have a question. Have you had anybody use this in like a group home or like a hospital setting?
Really good question from Missy Bryan. Is the mattress part of the safe space, or does the family provide it? We have 2 types of mattress available, and they're made to fit the space. The safe space interior isn't exactly square, the corners are mitered off, and the mattress fits that space. And we do a standard mattress, which is very, very water resistant, bite proof, chew proof, and we also do a memory foam mattress, which has a top layer of memory foam, and that's a slightly different mattress, slightly softer, and again, it's all down to the requirements of the individual. For instance, if somebody suffers with epilepsy and has and can overheat, then we wouldn't recommend the memory foam mattress. Oh, Donna Kelly just asked a question. Yeah.
Yes, hello. I'd like to ask,
Donna Kelly, can you put your sound on or type on the question that you're asking?
Can you hear me now? I'm unmuted, but it does not.
Sorry, so Donna, apologies, because we're in the same room, one of us had to mute because the sound travelled. So would you like to repeat your question? Whoa, okay.
Oh, yes. Have you tried this in group homes? Or...
It's not very good, is it, the sound?
Okay, turn your sound up and try it. No.
Okay, Donna, were you asking if we tried the safe space out in like a residential home with groups of people living together? Is that what you meant?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we were in the UK, and I'm sure Adaptive Imports have probably done the same in the US, but we regularly provide the product for someone to use as part of a residential home, and very often what we call the safe space can be used by multiple users. Again, if there are different people using it at different times of the day or over a period of time, where different users might come in and use it for different sessions, again, that has to be recorded carefully. And yes, it's a product that all of our products can be what we call multi-use products in a residential care home setting. Does that answer your question, Donna?
I think what's helpful that the design process is really based off of the environment you're going to use it in, whether it's going to be used in a school setting or a group home setting where you're going to use it as a sensory diet area used by multiple individuals, or what we're most commonly doing is looking at room replacements or putting this inside of a room. It's helpful that it's something that can be taken down and moved, especially when a majority of our clients don't own their own homes. So you can put this into a room in an apartment and they could move with it. A lot of those waiver services or waiver funding systems out there really fall short when the individual doesn't own their own home. So if we're going to use it as a sleeping area, it's best for one individual. But in that group home setting, it's really more of the sensory environment or that safe environment where you could use it for periods of reward or for periods where somebody needs to have the least restrictive environment to keep themselves safe if they're having challenging behaviors. All of those are done in a multi-step process that involves looking at the space, taking detailed measurements, understanding the height of the ceiling, lighting fixtures, where the windows and doors are going to be placed. So these things are custom made. They are, in the US, we have a few kits put together just as a discussion point to start, but there is no single kit for these. Each one is measured individually. So the design process goes back and forth. The ATP or dealer will provide back to the therapist or family member who they're working with a detailed drawing that shows what this product will look like from the top. So almost an architectural view of it.
Thank you, everyone. We still have one more question in the chat. So before we continue with that last question, I would like to thank you, everyone, for attending this session. And thank you for the speakers for this awesome presentation. As promised earlier, the CEU for this session is WR8I09. Cici will be sending the CEU on the chat, so please be in the lookout for this information on the chat. I will repeat it again, WR8I09. I will now give you the space for the rest of the question if you would like to proceed with it. I just wanted to make sure we would have enough time for the CEU. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So we have can you all, let's have a look. Got my thing switched on. So can you all hear me? We've had a question asking if there's a set of questions to help decide on how the product might meet the needs best of the user of the product, and we do, and Adaptive Imports will go with you and work through a list of questions looking at the mobility, the behaviours and the sleep pattern of the individual that you're working with to ensure that the product meets the needs as best as possible. And that's what we call a fact-finding stage, so that the product is correctly suited to the needs of the user.
Okay, I think that's done. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Like I said, you can access any of the info in the hub, and it's been great today seeing all your faces, seeing you there now. Thank you. Thanks to Adaptive Imports as well.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Good day.